You know, when you talk about how programs are run now, you got to have sort of an NFL perspective on things, I think. And Michigan has that now based on Sean's experience in the NFL. And he joins us now. Sean, how you doing?
Sam, doing phenomenally well. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to have you on. We were talking about this for a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a landmark day in our program's history. And what we're doing in terms of what this new class of 2025, will add to our team for this team 146 and beyond. But it's just an incredible day and incredible to be here with you. I joke with Sam all the time about I like to stay in the shadows some, but I'm happy to be on here and talk a little bit with everybody.
Yeah, the perspective on how NIL and rosters and managing rosters, how all of that converges. I don't think that people really understand how crucial it is to have the kind of experience that you have. But I really think it has been essential in how you guys are balancing recruiting. And I really think it's also going to shape how you guys go into the portal. Can you talk about how, as you are in it, how that experience has kind of shaped the direction of how you guys are doing things?
Oh, without a doubt. Having the opportunity to see the world, through the lens of professional football and developing that perspective. I don't say this arrogantly or egotistically, but others and my peers and competing programs around the country, people who are in these roles that are helping to manage those efforts, develop those strategies. I'm the only one that's been in an NFL front office, right? To be able to see that, to be able to live and experience it, so hugely invaluable, to have that. When Coach Moore, got the job last year and called me and said, "Hey, I need you. Will you come back?" I've told this story to others. In the last 2 years of being in the NFL and being exposed to college players from all around the country, right? And as we were evaluating, scouting, but building a roster, and the unique experience in Chicago of really tearing a roster down to build it back up. I had the unique perspective of being able to go into other buildings across America. And, we were extraordinarily happy to be in the NFL and to live that life and be experienced and exposed to that. But in the back of my mind, I had Michigan always in there, right? And Michigan was the benchmark. And so we go into these great buildings and great places with great players and coaches and history. And I just find myself saying, it ain't Michigan. Go to the next place and the same thing, right? And it wasn't because of, again, the players or the coaches or the building, but I knew what it took to create this special culture with special players, right? And that's the essential part of this, right? And whether it's in college football and the NFL, is first and foremost, you have to define your vision for what that fit is for the player on your roster. So how do you define that first? How do you build the strategy? And then how do you execute that strategy, within that vision? So, really seeing the economics of pro football and seeing how you operate with resource constraints. It was unique for me to experience. And again, right, as this new world and this landscape is changing every day, I think it's an essential part of what we're doing right now, right? And I think that gives us a bit of a competitive advantage at this point. And I think what we're doing and the strategies that Coach Moore, myself, are developing, that's going to allow us to compete at the highest level and to have a sustainable process to compete at the highest level.
And when you have a collective like the Champion Circle and the work that they've done to really first engage large donors in the way that they have and cultivate them in the way that they have, but also with how they're engaging, the regular, I call them regular donors, but the rank and file donors. That's important too, to not just be about the large donors that you understand you can't just tap them all the time. What about the partnership that you have with the Champion Circle and collectives and how crucial that is? What about that piece?
Oh, and it's true. And the definition partnership is is so apt, because nothing that we do on either side of this, right? Nothing that we do as a football program, the Champion Circle does. We reach our goals and objectives because of that true partnership. I'm every day connected at the hip with our Champion Circle staff, and they have done phenomenal things. And the support of everyone on this call, everyone listening on this broadcast, like you said, Sam, it's not just the large scale donors, right? And certainly we need large donors. We need that sort of investment. But the crowdfunding, the online memberships, the events, right? To the opportunity to give Michigan fans access, to our program, it's amazing, right? And this is shifted. This is a new model. This is different, and it's essential to what we're trying to do. This next year it's not an understatement to say it's the most pivotal year in the history of college athletics. I know everyone's heard about, the House settlement and what that means and what the future of revenue sharing means. But this year, and the calendar year of 2025, is going to be unlike any we've seen before it, and probably any we'll see after it. So if this goes to plan, that the House settlement is approved in April and can start in July, institutions will have the opportunity to directly compensate student athletes, through a revenue share equation, and have total funds that then will be allocated to the different sports, across the spectrum. The huge part of this, and what we battle, and myself along with Champion Circle in this donor outreach and talking to individuals to support. So both, like we said, at the crowdfunding level, at the large donor level, everyone saying, oh, well, the problem's solved, right? Revenue share is coming. It is, but it's not fully there, right? That's not going to start until July of next year. So the first 6 months of 2025 are absolutely pivotal and crucial, for us to support, to be able to build this sustainable model and this roster, as we venture into this new world, right? And this brand new environment of college athletics. So it is. When I talk to others in my seat or my peers around the country, they're amazed at what Champion Circle's done. There are other ways. You look at, for example, the state of Georgia, the state of Ohio, right? They've passed governmental orders, right, or our governor executive orders, to be able to use state funds or allow the institutions to be able to now, before revenue share starts, to be able to compensate student athletes in this new environment. People can't believe the success that we've had from the Champion Circle and the work that's been done, because people really aren't getting there the same way we have. So it's been incredible, and like I said, essential to what we're doing as a program.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting to see, as you talk about the revenue sharing model and paying players directly, and how that happens, and your experience of being applied to roster retention and paying players, and how you sort of slot.
Yeah.
In the NFL, you got a salary cap and how much you spend on certain positions. You gotta kind of apply those strategies and maybe have some discipline. And I'm curious if you started to already kind of set that structure even ahead of time, so when it hits, you can be ready to kind of have those. How much am I going to spend on offensive line? How much am I going to spend on receivers? And understanding we got to be disciplined in how we approach this, and we aren't going to go over slot value for that. Have you started to do that already?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge part of this, of executing this vision and strategy. In the NFL, player evaluation is fairly straightforward. The NFL likes to have this kind of the myth making of the calculus that goes involved in some of these decisions. But I tell our players all the time, and our guys and recruits, when we have these conversations, in the NFL, after you get through a rookie contract, when you have your first opportunity to negotiate a contract, player evaluation is straightforward. It's your production and comps, right? So if you're a wide receiver, we heard from Andrew Marsh earlier, who's going to be a dynamic, fantastic member of the Maize and Blue. He is going to be a superstar here. When you have a wide receiver and you're looking at an individual that's coming off their rookie contract, that's going for their second contract that the club wants to sign, or you want to sign a free agent, you're looking at past production, you're looking at potential for future production, and that means specifically, catches, touchdowns, all the variables that you want to look that way. You're looking at age and injury history, and then on the other side, you're looking at comps. So looking at that entire picture of the athlete and the player, then you're looking at how the market ranks or compensates that athlete with those similar attributes in stats and production. So it's not rocket science, right? And it's fitting that in. And as you see and you read about the contracts in the NFL and how they're derived, there's a straightforward approach. So the problem in college football right now, there are no comps. So you can understand production. You can understand, whether it's on your own team, whether it's in the transfer portal that's played at this level. You can also have projections from recruits, right, of what you believe that production is going to be, but there are no defined comps. So what we have the opportunity to do is create a system and a structure prior to, let's say, employment or collective bargaining or anywhere else, any other idea that's implemented that can give that information on what salaries are or put everything out in the open like it is in the NFL. We have to develop strategies of how are we going to compensate to a market value that doesn't necessarily exist. So here, and again, because of the experience and the exposure, we're able to leverage off what the NFL has done, right? We're able to leverage off the percent allocation for salary cap, right, by position. So if a player is achieved or we see a player at a certain level, we can look at the comparable data, of an NFL player, of what player with similar production, similar attributes, similar traits, what they've done at that level and what that allocation to a salary cap is. So Sam, as you said, while we don't have a hard to find salary cap that's mandated across the board, we have, like any business, like any household, we have a budget, right? And we establish what that constraint is. And if we start to apply some of those ideas of how we do percent allocation, this thing starts to come together, and that's what we've already implemented, right? And so in this specifically in this recruiting cycle, in the class that we put together and signed today, this was all under the vision of what is the appropriate percent allocation, at this position with this level of talent, and that drives the vision, and that's what we're trying to execute right now.
And so let's close talking about the 2 5-stars in the class, for instance, and when you're pursuing guys like Bryce Underwood and Andrew Babalola, who's about to come on after you, who Bryce Underwood is the highest rated player in the history of the program. Andrew Babalola is the highest rated offensive lineman in the history of the program. These are generational talents, right? And so, as you're assigning values to these guys, it has a way of distorting perspectives, Sean. Like, so, some of the reporting, let's also be clear. Some of the reporting is false. So let's start there. So you get false reports that are thrown out.
Yes.
That can distort perspectives. But let's also kind of concede that, valuations for prospects of that ilk are going to be different. Yes. When you talk about, hey, this is the highest rated player in the history of the program and the highest rated offensive lineman in the history of the program. And so, if it helps to have an NFL guy that can sort of explain to other players, they look, these are different. These are kind of like unicorn. A quarterback is different, or a left tackle is different. As an NFL guy, are you having those conversations, or are you bringing in people that can have those conversations?
No, absolutely. You look in the NFL, the highest paid player based on an annual average value of salary, currently is Dak Prescott, right? Dak makes an annual average salary of $60 million a year. Far and away the highest salary in all of pro football, right? The quarterback is the highest compensated position. And coming back to that, what I mentioned about the percent allocation of the salary cap, the current salary cap in the NFL is $255.4 million. So Dak Prescott essentially accounts for about a quarter of the entire salary cap, right, of the Dallas Cowboys. Patrick Mahomes at a $45 million, he's at an exceedingly high percentage. So the NFL has, again, by compensation, what's considered premium positions and non-premium positions. and that defines the market for each of those positions. So currently, right now in the sport of football, the quarterback, anything to do with the pass game, right? The quarterback, the wide receiver, the left tackle, the right tackle. So the thrower, the catcher, the protector are all paid at a premium as those compared to any other positions on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, the pass rusher. Traditionally, it's been that edge player. Guys like Aaron Donald and Chris Jones have changed the definition of what it is for a pass rusher in the sport. So it's now, the pass rushers on the defensive line and the quarterbacks, right? So the pass defenders and the pass rushers. So those are individuals that are paid at premium positions. So again, coming back to how you can explain this to a recruit, how you can explain this to someone on our own roster. If you look at it not in terms of what a number is, what the overall number is, but what that percent is, right? How you value an individual and compensate them to a percentage of the total budget, right? That in my opinion, that's the correct way to allocate, and that's how the NFL does it, right? And I think we're ahead of programs that haven't seen how to do this yet. I've heard, again, talk to people all across the country of saying, well, we pay starter money to this position and we do this here, this and there, here. Well, that's great. That's a system, but relative to what, right? Just because someone's a starter in your program at this position, how do they compare to the rest of the country? How do they compare to the rest of the conference? You need to understand whether it's relative to your team or relative to the entire industry. But you look at, again, right, our pursuit of a guy like Bryce and our pursuit of a guy like Andrew, you don't get opportunities all the time to pursue a player or players like this, right? And first and foremost, the number one trait and attribute for both of them is their Michigan fits. We built this program. If you go all the way back, Sam, one of the first times we talked, right? The first time you interviewed me was following, my first year here at the class of 2018. And at the time, I think that the pundits may have been super critical of what we did, right? Because our national ranking of that class was not exceptionally great, but we kept saying these are Michigan fits. These are individuals that fit in this locker room. These are individuals that will have tremendous success because their culture fits for what we value. In general, a recruiting class, you're hoping to hit 50%, right? Industry wide around the country, you're hoping to get 50% of the players you sign become premium players at your institution and your program. That first class of 2018, which was ranked in somewhere in the 20s, right? Like maybe 23 or so. I think we signed 18, 19 guys, and we had 11 drafted, NFL draft picks. So not just hits, but draft picks. So when you go back and re-rank, those classes, right? The foundation of a national championship team was created in 2018, 19, 20, 21, and 22. That's how we created a national championship roster off of fantastic, phenomenal players, but the right fits. So coming back full circle now, Bryce Underwood, Andrew Babaloa, Michigan fits first and foremost, who are exceptionally talented athletes, but exceptional humans, exceptional people from exceptional families. In the NFL, you talk a lot about, in the draft process, you don't generally miss on the player, you miss on the person. We won't miss on the person here on either one of those guys. So combined with electric ability, high end traits, generational type traits, it's those are the sort of program investments you make.
Absolutely. Sean, it's been too long since we sat down on camera. We talk off camera too, but on camera, it's been too long, man. So I appreciate you. You're my guy. Like I said, we need to do this more often. So
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot for your time. And you're in your groove, man. This is your thing. This is your time, and it's going to become more and more prevalent. I know you like to be in the shadows, but this is not a shadows position anymore, my guy.
I say that, and I realize as well, right? I mean, I'm exceptionally proud of what we've done, what our staff has done, what our coaching staff, our personnel staff, everyone in this building, right? I mean, to put together the work, to see the culmination of that work is awesome, right? And as someone who is leading that effort, I'm enormously proud of the work that it's taken to get here. And I feel like me coming on camera like this, I represent all of those people, right? And the countless hours and work I'm humbled and blessed to stand in front of you and on camera for the many that contributed to this.
Well, thanks a lot. Congratulations for a great class, and I know you're just getting started because the portal's about to open, man. So,
we'll reload and keep going.
All right, man. Thanks a
All
lot.
right, thanks, Sam.
All right, that's Sean Magee.